Let me just start by asking you, can someone be a good person but yet be evil in the sight of the Lord? Posible ba yan? For example, will God approve of you if you fight for something that is right and yet violate some of His instruction? Like for example, maisip ko diyang example, ito si Maria Risa, di ba, of Rappler. She's fighting for freedom of speech. However, I noticed that her speech towards the president is not so nice because God also tells us that we should respect authority. Doesn't mean that you accept everything they do, but you need to respect and honor them because God placed them there. On the other hand, may tanong pa ako, is it possible to be right in the eyes of the world and yet be foolish before the Lord? Posible ba yan? Ako, when I was thinking about that, naisip ko itong itong pangalang Stephen Hawkings. Yeah. Stephen Hawkings is referred to be one of the greatest mind in modern history. Despite yung disability niya, ang tawag sa disability niya, lateral sclerosis. So yung muscles niya hindi nagko-function. So, yung brain lang niya nagko-function. And in spite of that, ang dami-dami niyang naiisip. And he was able to explain how the universe was born. Diba? Lahat yan in-imagine lang niya. Diba? And sabi niya, it came from a big bang. After that, he wrote many books. He explained how the universe works. Can you imagine? A person with so much disability explaining how the world works. And when I was checking his story, sabi niya doon sa isang libro niya, the laws of the universe are fixed. Andiyan na yan, hindi nagbabago yan. And because of that, there is no place for God in it. Yan ang conclusion niya. There's no place for God in it because everything's fixed. Okay? Pero the world loves Stephen Hawking, okay? Because of all his accomplishment. He's revered. Tingin niyo ba natuwa si God sa conclusion niya? Parang hindi, di ba? Pero ang tanong ko, si Stephen Hawking ba, was he an evil person? When he tried to understand the universe, did he want to insult the Lord? I don't think so, di ba? Di ba? Okay? And then meron pa akong naisip na story, ngayon naman sa Bible, about the sons of Aaron. If you don't mind, can you turn your Bibles to Leviticus chapter 10? Leviticus chapter 10. I'll read verses 1 to 3. Leviticus 10, 1 to 3. Sabi ng verse 1, Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took their respective fire pans, and after putting fire in them, placed incense on it, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, It is what the Lord spoke, saying, By those who come near me, I will be treated as holy, and before all the people, I will be honored. So Aaron therefore kept silent. Si Nadab and Abihu, when they took their fire pan to offer incense, sinananadya ba sila? Sabi, gagalitin ko to. Ha? Do you know bakit ang mga Levites pinili to become priests? You know, they're special, no? They have no inheritance. Sabi, si God ang inheritance nila. They were chosen because they were the only tribe who stood by Moses to execute the judgment of the Lord when Israel sinned through the golden calf. When everybody sinned, Levites lang ang tumabi kay Moses. Lahat decided to worship this golden calf. And because of that, they were chosen as a special tribe. And I really believe si Nadab and si Abihu andun, nakita nila gaano nagalit si God kasi sila pumatay ng mga 3,000 na tao. Sila mismo ang pumatay sa galit ni God. So bakit naman nila sasadyain na bisitin si God sa strange fire, di ba? Pero siguro ang tanong, ano ba itong strange fire na to? How do we see paano naging strange fire? Go to Leviticus chapter 16. Leviticus 16, we'll be reading verses 11 and 12. Sa verse 11 ng chapter 16, sabi diyan, then Aaron shall offer the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and his household. And he shall slaughter the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself. He shall take a fire pan full of coal of fire from upon the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground sweet incense, and bring it inside the veil. No, God required a special incense. Sabi niya, from sweet incense. Siguro, tinamad si Nadab and Abihu maghanap ng sweet incense. Baka lang, di ba? So, ang inoffer nila, kung ano ang madaling kunin. Siguro, some people, some incense they use for other things. O siguro, dala-dala nila yan galing sa Egypt ng mga incense. Baka ginamit nila. Sabi nila, incense rin naman yan eh. So, I really believe yung si Nadab and si Abihu, maganda intention nila to honor the Lord. And I really believe also they were afraid to die. Sino bang gustong mamatay, di ba? Okay? However, they did not follow the instruction of the Lord. Ikaw si Aaron, tatay, how would you feel? Would you really believe masama ang ugali ng anak mo? Naniniwala ka ba na insultuhin ito ang Diyos? In fact, Aaron felt bad eh. Kaya nga si Moses had to comfort him. Where do you find that? If you, doon sa Leviticus 10, tinan nyo yung verse 3. Leviticus 10, verse 3. Sabi ng verse 3, then Moses said to Aaron, it is what the Lord spoke, saying, by those who come near me, I will be treated as holy, and before all the people I will be honored. So Aaron therefore kept silent. And I believe yung phrase na therefore Aaron kept silent, gusto niya nang magreklamo. Di ba? Ikaw, anak mo yun. Biglang namatay. Ginawa trabaho. Namatay pa. Di ba? Why did God reject them? In verse 3, sabi dyan, because they did not treat me as holy. What does that mean? Na they did not treat God as holy. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng holy? Ha? Okay, set apart. What does that mean, set apart? When you are set apart for God's purpose, what does God expect of you? You're set apart, di ba? They were set apart as Levites. They said, when you are holy, set apart, what does God expect of you? Huh? When you do His purpose, according to whom? According to His ways, not your ways. Diba? To be holy doesn't mean to be sinless. And so, pinag-usapan na natin yan. To be holy doesn't also mean you do not commit mistakes. However, to be holy means, pag may pinagawa si God sa'yo, gawin mo ng tama. Yung gusto niya. Hindi yung gusto mo. May tanong ako sa inyo, meron bang taong gusto maging masama? Nakita na kayo? Meron siguro. Siguro may taong sadyang loko-loko, di ba? Siguro may taong sadyang loko-loko. Pero alam ba nyo, na maski ang nakakulong sa munting lupa, naniniwala sila na hindi sila masamang tao? Di ba? All of them have justification o bakit nila nagawa yung nagawa nila. And they would even tell the world, di ba? Sana naman you would forgive us, accept us, consider us, di ba? Maski sila naniniwala hindi sila masamang tao. So ang tanong ko, supposing Buddhist ka, you worship your God. Are they picking a fight with the God of the Christians? No, they just chose, di ba? And I believe that was sincere. Ikaw ba pag Muslim ka, naging Muslim ka para maging terorista? Hindi rin. Di ba, one of the important thing I learned when I joined Project Islam was that the Muslims, they want to live in peace. Na maski sila mismo, galit sila sa mga Abu Sayyaf. Because of what they've done, ngayon, ostracize sila, di ba? Inaapi sila. In general. Pero they want to live in peace. You know ako, I made this message because of something I saw in 2 Kings chapter 21. We'll read verses 1 to 3. Sabi ng chapter 21, verse 1, Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hephzibah. He did evil in the sight of the Lord, according to the abomination of the nation whom the Lord dispossessed before the sons of Israel. For he rebuilt the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed, and he erected altars for Baal and made an Asherah, as Ahab king of Israel had done, and worshipped all the hosts of heaven and served them. Manasseh chose another god to worship. And sabi diyan, he even served the hosts of heaven. Now, he chose a God. Sabi ko sa inyo kanina, pag nag-decide ka maging Buddhist, masama ba yon? When you worship another God, is it to insult another God? Okay? Dito, he became evil in the sight of the Lord. Si Manasseh, if you read his story, marami siyang ginagawa para sa Diyos na we-worship niya. Okay? And I still believe he was sincere. Kayo ba, pag nag-worship kayo ng God, gusto niyo mamatay kayo? When you worship a God, you want the favor of that God, di ba? So, I really believe he worshiped Baal because he wanted Baal to bless him. Unfortunately, he went sa Lord. Alam nyo, one of my favorite people management principle is something I learned in HP. Ang sabi doon, everybody wants to do a good job. Nobody wants to fail. When they do not do a good job, they either do not know their job or they are in the wrong job. In the same way, I believe everybody wants to be a good person. Sino sa inyo ang gusto makitang maging masamang tao? Wala siguro, di ba? Everybody wants to be a good person. Nobody wants to become bad. Minsan, may tao na nakagawa ng masama dahil siguro sa galit nila. Pero pagkatapos, humihingi sila ng pag-unawa. Sinasabi nila, hindi sila masamang tao. When I was thinking about this, naalala ko yung 5-minute lady. Naalala niyo yung 5-minute lady? Yung nakikipagtalo sa MMDA kasi yung nakaparada siya, sabi niya, where's the 5 minutes? Where's the 5 minutes? Di ba? And when they finally apologize, sabi nila, hindi kami masamang tao. Kayo, tingin niyo, hindi ba sila masamang tao? During that, when they were doing that, people were judging them. Pero they would still say, hindi kami masamang tao. Di ba? They still believe, well, meron silang nagawang mali, hindi pa rin sila masama. However, I'm learning na all of us have certain standards we follow. And iba-iba ang standards natin. And you will find na often, yan ang debate natin. Diyan tayo nag-aaway kasi iba-iba ang standard natin. In a household, iba-iba ang standard. Okay? Like, iba ang standard ni Bella sa bahay, iba ang standard ni George. Kaya sabi ni George, para hindi lang kami mag-away, si Bella, mabait ka talaga, George. Okay. However, people would insist, di ba? People would insist na tama yung gusto nila. And that is the reason why people will insist morality should be relative. Para hindi tayo mag-away, we should respect each other's morality. Kanya-kanya tayo eh. Do you think God will agree with that? You know, ako, na-realize ko, ang morality kay God isa lang eh. Ano yung morality niya? Yung kanya. Okay? Yung kanya lang. Tinanong ko kayo kanina, when someone chooses to serve another God, di ba ang gusto nila, matuwa yung God nila, and then i-bless sila? So, if someone chooses another God to worship, shouldn't our God respect their intentions? Hindi ba unfair kay God to reject them only because they chose another God? Di ba si God din nagbigay sa atin ng freedom to choose? Di ba it's a freedom He gave us? So, shouldn't He respect our choice? Pero to answer this, gusto ko sana maintindihan natin yung sitwasyon ni Manasseh. Sino ba siya and ano circumstances niya? Manasseh was the king of Judah, a descendant of David. When he became king, Israel was already conquered and exiled by Assyria because they were very wicked. So, ang Israel sira na. They were under Assyria. However, God preserved Judah because sabi niya, I will stay in Jerusalem and put my name diyan sa Jerusalem. And he called the Jews his own people. 'Di ba? Ang may-ari lang ng lugar, ang may karapatan magsabi sino ang tama, sino ang mali. Sa bahay niya, ang may-ari lang ang pwede mag-impose ng standard. God did not say Manasseh was evil in the sight of the God he served. Sabi niya, he was evil in his sight. Bakit? Kasi bahay niya yun. And he was supposed to represent him. Kaya nga he was chosen to be king of Judah. So God has the right to judge him. Ano ba yun? Bahay niya eh. Pinili ka eh. Okay? Pag pinili ka, parang for example, in Del Monte, you have all your standards. But at the end of the day, hindi importante standards nyo. Importante standard nung may-ari. Pwede nyo sabihin mali. Mali sa inyo. Tama sa kanya. Di ba? And I realize, ito problema natin as a Christian nation. And I believe God will treat us in the same way. When we say we follow Jesus and worship the Lord, what does He expect of you? He expects you to treat Him as holy. What does that mean? Ano pinag-usapan natin? What does it mean to be holy? Set apart for His purpose and to do things according to His instructions. Hindi pwede yung gusto mo. And yet most people today will demand their morality. No? We started that relative morality issue with ABS-CBN. Hanggang ngayon, yun pa rin pinag-uusapan. They would say tama sila, some people would say hindi sila. So, ang dami-daming version of morality with regards lang to ABS-CBN. And everybody would say tama sila. And because we have different standards, ang gulo-gulo natin. And then we insist that sana God would accept us because our intentions are good. Should God accept you because your intention is good? Kayo ba, do you accept people only because maganda intention nila? Sa trabaho nyo ba? Hindi rin, di ba? At the end of the day, hindi naman unfair yun, di ba? Pero ako, I have my people in the past, sabihin na sa akin parate, maganda naman intention ko. Wala akong intention na masama. Pero mali. Di ba? God will only accept us if we live out His morality according to His ways. You know, I have been telling you, no, di ba, in the past few months, I realized na hindi importante ang gusto mo. Importante ang gusto niya. If you want God's blessing and gain His favor, then you must honor Him according to the way He wants to be honored. Pero may tanong ako sa inyo. How would you feel pag pinilit ko ang tama ko sa inyo na maski mali para sa inyo? How would you feel? Ha? Magagalit kayo, di ba? Now, how would I feel pag pinilit niyo yung tama niyo sa akin, para sa akin? How would I feel? Galit ka. Di ba? Pag pinilit ko yung tama ko sa inyo, pag pinilit ko yung tama niyo sa akin, ano mangyayari sa atin? Do you know why God set a standard? Kasi kung tayo-tayo lang, hindi tayo matatapos eh. I was reading this article that said that Israel's greatest blessing to the world are the laws of the Lord. Bakit? Because it settles many issues eh. Okay? Kung tayo-tayo lang, magkakagulo talaga tayo. Because we have relative standards. Okay? And you can justify whatever you feel and whatever you do. But this does not mean God will be pleased with you. Diba? So as we continue, I'd like us to go to Proverbs. Tingnan natin ano ba sabi ni God with regards to these standards. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15. Okay, Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15. Sabi ng verse 15, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel. Now that's counsel. Counsel ng ibang tao. Pero will that make sure na hindi ka magkakamali? Go to Proverbs 21. Proverbs 21, verse 2. Sabi ng Proverbs 21, verse 2, every man's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. Now, this is intention. Will intention be okay to the Lord? Now, how do you know that your intention is right? How would you know that your intention is right? Pwede ba sabihin mo, Lord, okay naman intention ko, wala naman akong gustong masaktan. Diba? Pero ito feeling ko ang tama. How do you know that in your intention before the Lord is right? Oh, if you're willing to change it for His ways. Because yun lang naman tamang intention eh. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, okay naman Lord, intention ko eh. Because unless you align it with His, your intentions will never be right. And then go to Proverbs 14 verse 12. Sabi dyan, there is a way which seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. So it is dangerous to live our life based on our standards. It's always dangerous. Okay? All of us, up to now, even in this room, we have different standards. Okay? And there are things we can argue about. And that's the reason why it should not be our standard, but it should be His standard. Let me ask you a question dito sa Proverbs. Kanino sinulat ito? Para kanino to? Para sa mundo? Oh, only for the Jews. Is it for other people outside the Jewish faith? No. This is for the Jews. Now, who are the Jews today? Tayo. Christians, the people God chose. So this is not for the person na ayaw mo. This is for you. This is for us. At the end of the day, this is just for us. You know, I'm realizing it is wickedness to know what is right and still reject it. It is foolishness to know the rewards of obedience and choose punishment. And I think yun si Manas eh. Nakita niya nangyari sa tatay niya. Tatay niya is one of the greatest king of Judah. And yet, he chose. Nakita rin niya kung paano pinagaling ni God yung tatay niya. Pero nakita rin niya paano pinalo ni God yung tatay niya nung nagkamali tatay niya. And yet, he chose. He chose to follow another God. Di ba? Tayo, we laugh at those people, but sometimes we can be very foolish also. Okay? Alam na natin ano nangyayari if we don't obey God completely. And yet we choose. Bakit? Kasi ito pakiramdam ko eh. Ito yung gusto ko. Okay, so, as I end lang, if you want to live a good life, I'd like us to consider Deuteronomy chapter 30. Deuteronomy chapter 30. I'll read verses 15 to 20. Sabi ng verse 15, see, I have set before you today life and prosperity, and death and adversity. In that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in His ways and to keep His commandments and His statutes and judgment, that you may live and multiply, and that the Lord your God may bless you in the land where you are entering to possess it. But if your heart turns away and you will not obey, but are drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall surely perish. You shall not prolong your days in the land where you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess it. I call heavens and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, and blessing and the blessing and the curse. So choose life, so that you may live and your descendants, by loving the Lord your God, by obeying His voice, and by holding fast to Him. For this is your life and the length of your days, that you may live in the land which the Lord swore to your father, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to give them. Sabi niya, choose life, not death. And yet often, we have many decisions. I still do that. I go through that. Decisions that would, maybe hindi ka namatay, pero nahirapan ka. Diba? Because we're often foolish. We choose the ways of death. Diba? Death lang, sabi ko sa inyo, it's a separation from the Lord. It's separation from things, no? Ako naniniwala itong ibig sabihin ng last verse natin is Matthew 16, 24 to 25. Matthew 16:24. Sabi diyan, then Jesus said to His disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Okay? Pero let's talk about take up your cross. Because to many people, the cross seems to be a burden. Okay? When God said, you shall treat me as holy, what does that mean? To be set apart for His purpose. So what is your cross? Your purpose. It doesn't mean a burden. It's just the purpose that God has given you. That is your cross. Kakala natin when God said, take up your cross, deny yourself. We deny ourselves from the world. That is not true. Many Christians would take on certain sufferings just to please the Lord. So may tanong ako sa iyo. Nag-suffer ka, ginuto mo sarili mo, pero disobedient ka. Do you think God will be pleased to you? Do you know that Manasseh even offered his son in the sacrifice? Okay? He offered, I think, masakit yun, di ba? Pero he wanted to please this God. Di ba? So, anong silbi nun? So, taking up your cross doesn't mean you suffer. Taking up your cross means ito binigay ko sa yung purpose. You better do that. So, therefore, deny yourself so that you can live out that purpose. Are you in a situation na mabigat and mahirap? Is there a conflict between what is right for you and what is right for another person? Sabi ni God, deny yourself. Dahil sabihin mo, paano isang tao? Wala kang pakialam doon. Okay? Wala kang pakialam doon. Okay? He needs to deny himself as well. Di ba? And the reason I think we struggle is because when our morality does not fit each other, we insist our morality on others. Sabi ko sa inyo, when God was saying this, who was He talking to? To the Jews. Today, to the Christians. Today, as I share these things with you, who is God talking to? To me? Huh? Or to you?
To each of us.
No, to you lang. Para lang sa'yo. Yung sa akin, akin. Kasi minsan sabihin natin, sana naisip rin niya yun. Wala kang pakialam kung naisip niya yun o hindi. Now, why is it important that you just deny yourself? Kasi sabi ni God, di ba, that if you lose your life for my sake, you will find it. Okay? Sabi niya, if you take on my standards, the good life that you want, you will have it. Okay? The only way to live in peace is to take on His standards. Now, does He have a right to impose it? Ako, yes. Bakit? You call Him your God eh. Now, if you deny your faith, you go to another God, ibang kwento yun. That maybe that God will bless you. So, hindi importante na tama tayo. importante na tama tayo before the Lord. Okay? So that we can receive the blessings that we desire.